Hey there, soil mates. Welcome to Men Metal Mayhem, the podcast where the brothers men take a deep dive into the discographies of our favorite metal bands. I'm your host, Brother Paul, joined as ever by my two brothers and co-hosts, Brother John
What's up?
and Brother Dave.
Ohio gozaimasu.
Each season of the show, we are focusing on one band. In season one, Songs of the Damned, we are covering Soilwork. Today, we are discussing their savage 2001 album, A Predator's Portrait. Join us as the Shadow Child leads us on this neurotica rampage. Okay, so this album was released February 19, 2001. Brother John, why don't you give us a snapshot of the top 40 chart that week and then tell us what you were doing in early 2001?
Oh, can do. It'd be my pleasure, Brother Paul. Well, number one on the top 40 charts that week was a little song called Stutter by Joe featuring Mystical. I had never heard this one before, although I did still listen to the radio, I think, at this point. Yeah, maybe not so much as I had in my more early high school years. I checked it out. It was okay. But a couple other ones that were towards the top of the charts that I think we can all remember. Number two, It Wasn't Me by Shaggy. Still a classic.
Oh, timeless.
Number three was Love Don't Cost a Thing by Jennifer Lopez. Number 12, one that I think we can all agree was a classic, the song Butterfly by Crazy Town. And number 17, I think we mentioned this in the last episode, With Arms Wide Open by Creed, a real chart topper. That spent quite a long time in the top 40. But, those are the notable ones as far as I could tell and the ones that I remembered. And, if I remember it, that means it's pretty noteworthy because, as we all know, I don't remember much. But things that I was doing in those days, well, it was the last half of my senior year of high school. I was still working at Shakey's Pizza. And in those days, I had pretty cool, if I might say so myself, bleach blonde, spiky hair, and a little less cool at times. I was looking back at some pictures and I would sport a goatee from time to time. And that was a stylistic boo-boo that I have nixed from my style in the years since high school. I don't think I've never gone back, but usually I just have the full beard now. But my hair game was on point, and in fact, I was looking back at my yearbook, and I was voted as having the best hair in my senior year yearbook, and they vote on those kind of things. So props to me. Another couple of funny things that I noticed in my yearbook. We it was a Christian school, obviously, and we would write down like a quote and our favorite Bible verse. I don't know if this was specifically a favorite, but the one that I chose, Matthew 24, verse 6a, which is, "You will hear of wars and rumors of wars, but see to it that you are not alarmed." And that kind of went hand in hand with my encouraging words, which were, "Don't worry about stuff. It will all work out." Truly, words to live by.
Such a Brother John quote.
That so perfectly sums you up. It's wow.
So grads. Don't worry about it. It'll all work out. And also, I did not remember this until I saw it in black and white, but the parents must have paid the school to create a full page spread for me in the yearbook, like kind of like an ad, but like to write something, to me, the graduate. And it included a couple of thoughts and prayers or comments from other family members, such as you two. So I wanted to just read those ones too. So, Brother Paul, your encouraging words to me were, "What am I going to do with all the free time now that I am no longer your personal answering service? And how will I get CDs for low prices? Thanks for always lending me CDs, driving me places, and being a good brother." You're welcome. And Brother Dave, you said these last couple of years have been really cool. I'm going to miss jamming and role playing and all the other cool stuff we do. And indeed, I did miss that too. And I had kind of forgotten, like back in the day, you would be just like riffing on probably just some Metallica stuff, and I would play the drums along
Largely.
however
Yeah.
I could. And those were good times.
Those were
So
good
maybe someday we
times.
could get the family band back together again.
Yeah, Paul, you can pick up the bass again.
It's the
Be the
foundation of the
foundation of the
band.
family band.
It
Yeah.
is the foundation, and one of you guys could sing. I certainly can't. Um, so
I
we'll
mean,
figure
I
it out.
I sang in the bands I was in, so
Well, there you go. We've got
Yeah.
it. We've got it
not
made.
well.
Speaking of family bands, not really a family, but I was playing drums in a band in high school, and that band was called True Identity. I don't totally remember what it sounded like or what our songs were, but I
It
just remember
was
we got
it was
compared to the
basically
Cranberries sometimes.
it wasn't
So
basically worship music.
probably like we all did, I think, play on the worship band at least. Maybe not at Valley Christian because I don't recall doing it there, but at Appleton Christian, I think everybody who was in True Identity also played in the worship band on Wednesdays for chapel. Um,
I
So
I
a
I
think
know I have
couple
a
almost
CD
all
of
of
it
them.
somewhere. Couldn't really tell you much. I'll have to dig that out and maybe we could do an ep on that.
my wife and
No,
I we
no,
we
no, no.
found one of those CDs at our house. And we listened to it and she was like, "Oh, so they're just the Cranberries."
So even people now or whenever you listen to that are still giving us that comparison, which the Cranberries pretty legit. So,
And
female
I
fronted
guess
alt rock or something like that.
yeah, and at this time wasn't Zombie like huge?
Yeah, I mean, I assume we may have done a cover of that, but I don't really recall for sure. Other than that, I was pretty much just going to local shows whenever possible. It was mostly punk pop, punk, pop punk, and ska. Leave it in, leave it in. I don't really, and thinking back, I don't really recall there being much of a metal scene in Appleton, but it could be that I just wasn't plugged into it, and none of my friends at that time were in metal bands because people got into metal bands probably more like 2003-ish time frame and later. And so I would go to some metal shows around here, but like in 2001, I don't think anyone was really playing in metal bands. It was all just like pop punk stuff. Um, and stuff I was listening to in those days, Rage Against the Machine, Savior Machine, machine related bands, probably Machine Head, although I didn't get too into them. Zayo, Mustard Plug, The Boss Tones, MXPX, Less Than Jake, Coal Chamber, Rammstein, Slipknot, and Korn. So really a diverse mix of ska and new metal mainly. And Savior Machine thrown in for good measure, sort of gothic operatic rock metal, sort of whatever you call them. Um, and I don't know when I first heard this album, A Predator's Portrait, because I don't think we got it right when it came out, but probably within the year after it came out, maybe, I don't know, maybe like later 2001 or something. But I remember liking it right out of the gate. And I know this has always been one that I've given a lot of listens to. And over the years, it's stayed strong for me. Brother Dave, what were you up to in these days?
I was up to being in my junior year at Valley Christian High School, the one year that I went to that school. Um, as we mentioned last time, we had started at Appleton Christian. It merged with Oshkosh Christian and became Valley Christian. And I spent a whole year there. Uh, do you two remember why we switched? I mean, John, you graduated, so maybe it wasn't on your radar, but Paul, do you remember why we didn't go there anymore?
Oh, to Valley Christian?
Yeah.
I mean, I went all 4 years.
I was gonna say, I didn't. Yeah, Paul kept going there.
No.
I just remember there being a lot of dissatisfaction with like the
So,
staff and the faculty and just
yeah,
generally how things were
my
run.
my recollection is that our parents were like big on financial responsibility, which is not a dig on our parents at all. But when they brought it up to the mostly Oshkosh uh like staff who were still kind of running things, they got accused of being tools of Satan. And
What?
I
yeah,
do recall
What did they
that.
bring up? What did they bring up?
I think they were critical of the principal, who was like
Well,
kind of a doofus and
easy to be
wasn't
critical of
spending.
him.
Yeah, he he was an idiot. But
Dr.
yeah,
Harris, if you're listening, we still have that same opinion of you. Actually, can I go down a little rabbit hole here? So our senior prank, so the principal's name is Dr. William E. Harris, and he had a little name plaque on his desk, it said Dr. William E. Harris. And the senior class basically had a replica plaque or like nameplate thing produced that said Dr. Ween E. Harris. And so somebody like snuck it out and switched it when he wasn't aware. And then I don't know if I was like working on the yearbook or what, but I went in there under the guise of taking photos for the yearbook and took photos of him sitting at his desk with this nameplate like in front in the shot. And when they found out, they were pissed. And they basically, I don't remember exactly what happened, but I think they confiscated my camera and it was like a big to do. But then eventually they did give it back. So I think somewhere I probably still have those photos of Dr. Weenie Harris from Valley Christian High School. But
Oh,
so they accused our parents of being tools of Satan for promoting fiscal responsibility, like just not spending more
yeah.
than you make or something, or
Yeah, basically that.
how
And then
asinine.
uh so then the following year, me and Sister Rebecca got pulled out and we went to Fox Valley Lutheran, even though we are not Lutheran.
Well, at least those guys are fiscally responsible. You can tell they've
They
got a
are.
nice facility, so they're doing something
Yeah.
right.
And but then I guess maybe Harris got moved or there was a change in leadership or something, and then Paul
Yeah, I
right there.
so I well, let's finish up with you, but yeah, I went
Yeah.
to Valley Christian the whole time.
Yeah. I mean, that's for coming episodes. You're not even there yet. You're
No,
still a
I'm
little
not.
baby. Um, what happened? I think musically, I was less diverse than John because that's kind of a running theme here. Uh, I was still probably into Metallica, but also getting into new metal around this time. I remember you, John, being huge into Blink 182 this year.
Oh yeah, used to listen to a
Um,
lot of Blink back in the day.
and one thing on the new metal front, I remember, so you would drive us to and from school when we didn't take the bus because it was like a 30-minute drive and you had your license. And I do remember one day on the drive home, you rear-ended somebody and it
Oh,
wasn't
listening to Corn.
corn, right?
Yeah, and
And it was
oh,
like,
what
oh
song? What it
shit,
might have been
oh
it
shit,
might have been
oh
Ball Tongue
shit.
or something off
I was
off
trying to find the
Life
song and
is
I could
Peachy, I
not.
want to say. It was it might have been Adidas or Ball Tongue. I feel like it was one of those two. I'd have to maybe re-listen to the album and all the horrible memories would come flooding back. But yeah, there was like a big slowdown in traffic and I was just going too fast, rocking out to Corn and rear-ended somebody. Whoops.
Yep. And then I just remember I remember you looking over at me as you were pulling off to the side of the road and saying, "Oh shit," along with the lyrics of the song at the time. They seemed they seem very appropriate.
I'm gonna have to revisit that album and I'll let you know if I can pinpoint exactly which song that was actually. Uh,
I mean, it was a largely not memorable year for me. I got my wisdom teeth out. And then the only other thing that sticks out in my mind that happened is that I got threatened to be shot by like the weird kid at Valley Christian, and I don't even know why he was interested in me. Like I had no interaction with the guy at all.
which weird kid
And
was this?
I don't even
Maybe we
remember
shouldn't
his
name names. He
name.
might listen and come hunt you down
Yeah, he might come
for
for
calling
me.
him out. Tell me
I
off
think
air.
he was like 1 year behind me, I want to say, and he knew I took karate for some reason, and he was like, just like sat down and started talking to me kind of threateningly and was like, "Yeah, you do karate? Well, my parents got me a gun." And just was like, and not like trying to compare hobbies or something, like having a gun, I could kill a guy who does karate sort of way. And I was like, what the fuck is going on here? And so like we reported him, but it was pre-Columbine, so nobody really took it seriously. And thankfully, I also didn't get shot. But yeah,
Well,
weird
I'm
times
thankful
at
for
Valley
that too.
Christian.
Jeez.
And glad it's done. Fox Valley Lutheran was much better in the
I
coming year.
recall we listened to what is it, the song Ronnie on Metallica's Load, and
Oh yeah, that's about a school shooter,
that's about a school
basically.
shooter essentially, and like so we were listening to that and you're like, this is just basically about, whatever fucking chucklehead was threatening me with a gun at school.
Yeah, just a real weird kid. Oh, and that guy at one point, so I wore very stylish, thick-rimmed, huge glasses, like I think we all did because we were very stylish people. And at one point, like he came up behind me and he grabbed my glasses and just started running off with it. But I was taller and faster than him, so I chased him down and I put him in a headlock. And
Just
then,
karate chopped his neck. Wow.
yep, straight off. Now he doesn't have a neck. Uh,
Decapitated.
yeah, just weird. I guess I was
Hmm.
bullied, but like by a really pathetic kid who wasn't intimidating, but he did have theoretically have a gun, but I never saw that.
Well, luckily, geez. Yeah, it sounds
Well,
like maybe
Yeah,
he was bullied and he was trying to take it out on someone he thought he could bully or
I
something.
guess. I mean, I was like the weird, quiet kid. I had like one friend. Shout out to Dave Kiefer. That dude's
Hey,
awesome.
Dave
I haven't
Keefe.
talked to him in a long time,
he
but
he spoiler alert, the keepers will feature in another episode about this. I have a story.
oh,
Um,
nice.
but for this time, um, moving on to me, I was 12 years old. I was in seventh grade. And I remember this was kind of the first real show that I chose to go to, other than the Newsboys at Skillet that I did back in when I was in fourth grade. Saw MXPX and Good Charlotte was opening for them. They just come out with their debut album, and I saw them at the Riverside Ballroom in Green Bay. And that was like a legit like dinner club ballroom, and they had these really nice chandeliers. And I remember some guy like jumped up and was trying to like hang from the chandelier, and security was on him in half a second, pulling him down. I was like, oh, this is the wildest thing that's ever happened. I'm in seventh grade.
They're just beating the shit out of this guy right in
Yeah.
front of you.
So yeah, and then I was wearing a Less Than Jake shirt, and got that signed by the guys from Good Charlotte. So sad I didn't keep that memento.
Oh, be
But
worth some money on eBay these days.
truly would be. Who wants a Less Than Jake t-shirt signed by two of the members of Good Charlotte?
It's
Uh
like those memes that is just like a mashup of all different like nerd things that'll just make everyone's blood boil when they see it because nothing's right. You know the
yeah.
ones.
Oh,
I know the
absolutely.
ones.
But in terms of music, I believe it was that Christmas, the Christmas before this album came out. I stumbled upon a trove of like all of the Circle of Dust albums at, I think it was Lighthouse Books in Green
Mm.
Bay. There
Yeah, that place
was
was good.
Yeah, that was like the better Christian music shop. And so we'd gone there, because they had a better selection. So we went there as a family. It's probably like a 35-40 minute drive. And I found all the Circle of Dust albums, including like the first pressing of their debut, which was different to the one that was re-released a couple years later. And I was just like so fucking hyped because Circle of Dust was my favorite band. Them and Fear Factory at that time. And then I also got there was an exclusive company in Green Bay as well. I think kind of in the same strip mall parking lot, and went over there and found the Chatterbox album Despite. And Chatterbox, that was another Christian industrial band, had some of the members of Stavesacre and the Crucified, who was like a crossover thrash punk band. Um, and I think that one still holds up. But then in terms of music outside of the Christian scene, Orgy's Vapor Transmission came out at the end of 2000. And so that would have been basically on repeat for me. I loved that album. I listened to that album so much, and
Oh yeah, dude. Love that
still
one.
still really good. And I remember I used to walk to the library a whole lot. My big cargo pants with the Discman stuck in there, and I was walking back, and my shoe got stuck in my shoelaces, and I tripped in the middle of an intersection. I just face planted. It was a red light, so I was able to cross, but there was a bus full of people just watch me face plant. My Discman hit the ground and my orgy CD fly out. And
Oh
so I
no.
like quick hustle across, and I realized the CD's still in the street, and I just had to run back and grab it before the light turned green. So I mean that was me in 2001.
Not too terribly scratched up though.
No, it still worked.
Oh. Whew.
You know, so
Oh, speaking of vapor transmission, so this is years later. I forget exactly when, but remember one Christmas I wrapped up 12 presents in successively smaller boxes and gave them to you. And there's a little lump of coal as the gift in the smallest box in the middle.
oh, I remember.
How could you forget? But as I was wrapping all that stuff, I pretty much listened to Vapor Transmission twice.
So good.
And it was possibly the greatest gift I've ever given anyone. And I have many pictures of it, so we can put that up on the website for all the fans of our podcast.
Yeah.
Each
Let me
other.
just say we are going to be having, some social media presence. So hopefully I can get some pictures of you with the bleach blonde hair and the
Oh, I
goatee.
got pictures of everything, and I'm willing to degrade myself by showing them.
I did send us that one of all three of us looking.
Oh yeah, that exactly how you might imagine people with our stylistic preferences that we've been discussing here.
Yeah. So now we're going to be moving on to look at the year in metal. And so far, 2001 looks like the best year for releases we've had so far. We have Opeth, Blackwater Park, Catatonia, Last Fair Deal Gone Down, Amorphous, Universum, Dimmu Borgir, Puritanical Euphoric Misanthropia, which all classic albums, all flawless, I think, for us. We also have the debut albums from Cult of Luna and Gojira, and then just a couple others from lesser known bands, at least for maybe you guys. Paradise Lost came out with Believe in Nothing, and this is them at the height of them being a depressed alt rock band, and it's honestly my favorite album they've ever done. He talks about being on like heavy antidepressants while writing this, and it's just bleak. We also have Fear Factory Digimortal, which not nearly as good as Obsolete. They really kind of leaned into the kind of rap and new metal on that one. And then finally, just kind of my little pet band, Agatha Damien Chapter 3 came out. So you guys got anything else to add?
Arch Enemy, Wages of Sin. Did you say that one? That was 2001, right?
Oh, I didn't say that one.
Yeah, that probably bears a mention. And
Oh, that was
then,
That's a real good album.
yeah, I think that I forget the names of them, but that and one of the other ones, maybe the one that came out after that, were the two main Arch Enemy albums that I listened to, but I haven't really heard them in quite a long time. But in those days, I was way into Rammstein still. Mutter came out in 2001. That got a lot of play, as well as System of a Down Toxicity. That was all over my Discman heading into college. And then a couple other ones. Well, Zayo came out with self-titled. I feel like this is maybe the last one that I really got of theirs. I forget. I, kind of stopped listening to them. They were getting worse and worse with each release after that. So, kind of fell off for me. But
talk about
also
a band with
Converge.
lineup shuffles.
Oh, yeah. I don't know if any of the original people are probably not still in that one anymore. But Converge, Jane Doe, that was a pretty heavy hitter. And Every Time I Die, Last Night in Town, for more of a metalcore type of release. That was in 2001 as well.
Okay. Well, moving on to Soilwork themselves, like a lot of metal bands, they have a revolving door of members. So let's see who made the cut and who's in and who's out on this album. So first up, we have Bjorn Speedstrid on vocals, Peter Witchers, guitar, Ola Frenning, guitar, Ola Flink, bass, Henry Ranta, drums, and Carlos del Olma Ormberg on keyboards. First album with no
So,
lineup changes.
yeah.
So we'll see how long that lasts, but they made it 2 consecutive albums with the same lineup. Moving on, third time's the charm. They are sticking with Frederick Nordstrom as their producer, and that same year he is also producing Dimmu's album that came out, Arch Enemy's Wages of Sin, which was the first album to feature Angela Gossow, and God Gory's final album, Way Beyond. And they're kind of just like a solid doom death band, who I started listening to while researching this, and I was like, that's a pretty good album. He also mixed Blackwater Park, and so he's pulling double duties because Opeth and Soilwork are at Studio Fredman. Um, Frederick is producing Soilwork and then running over to Opeth and just doing all the mixing and engineering. Um, this is also the first instance where Soilwork is listed as producers on the album. So they're moving up in the world. They're seeing dollar signs. So got to get that producer
And
credit.
first album where they were not on listenable records. Now they're on Nuclear Blast, right?
That is true. And
So they
that's
may have
going
had
to
a
stay
little
the
bigger
way
budget or something. I wonder. I didn't really look into that too much, but definitely
one would
got
have.
on some bigger tours around this time, and you can tell the production quality on this album is a little step above what their prior
Mhm.
albums had.
And then lastly, Jens Broman, who would briefly be a vocalist for Darkane, co-wrote some of the lyrics. He apparently is just a buddy of Speed's, and they wrote some lyrics together. So, all right, you guys ready to get into it with the track by track?
Oh, I'm ready. I was born
Let's
ready
do it.
for
All
this
right.
one.
So, track number 1, Bastard Chain. And Brother John, you've been champing at the bit. How about you? Let us know what
Well,
you think
this
about this one.
let's make no bones about it. I love this album and this opener. It's a banger. It has some really cool guitar parts. Um, like, well, I think the first section at like about the 31-second mark, he's like, "Bastard chain was so lame, bastard chain," and the guitars are like, "Wow, wow, 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 doodly 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 doodly." That part, it's just like a cool. It's a sick rick. If I could talk,
It's a pickle Rick.
It's a pickle Rick.
That's
A
our new
sick
feature
riff.
on the show.
Pickle
Pickle
Ricks,
Rick.
baby. No, a sick riff and a tasty lick back to back. So you got to drop that soundbite in, so that everyone can hear what the hell I'm talking about here. But
No, I'm just going to
this,
keep it you doing air guitar. And I'm going to drop that in all over the place.
you feel free. You know that could be the the soundbite for when we introduce the Pickle Rick segment. But this whole album, I feel like, is just full, like chock full of awesome guitar parts, awesome drum parts, and this song is really no exception. And I learned as I was reading the lyrics, I was like, what? This sounds like it's about saying fuck you to Nazis. And indeed, that does seem to be what it's about. So, props to them. They're Nazi punks fuck off anthem for the metal community.
It's always good when metal bands are anti-Nazi explicitly, because that is an unfortunate underside of parts of the genre, at least.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've mentioned before, I enjoy black metal more than you guys. And boy, I'm always getting like shot in the heart and being like, oh yeah, these guys are Nazi or Nazi adjacent. And I'm like, well, that sucks, but I'm not surprised.
Yeah, black metal's a real crapshoot.
Yeah. Dave, what are your thoughts on this track?
It is a bold choice to start with this this song. I think the song is awesome, but it's probably the most chaotic one on the album. Uh, I think it's awesome. Um, just to be a counting nerd, like it's mostly kind of breaks down into 4/4, but it's groups of 3 and 5 that they put together in a bunch of different combinations in this song, which I think is pretty cool. Um, he also starts off with kind of a classic Bjorn Speedstrid word salad with "You haven't decided your own fate because your story is a life too bitter to tell," all somehow jammed into like 4 beats, uh, which I love.
He's a bit of a magician when it comes to that,
He
and
really is. It's
I do kind of love it too, actually.
I like I listened to it a couple of times and I'm like, I don't even know how he like I can hear all the words, but I don't know how he's putting them all into that short amount of time. Um, the other thing that's I'm not gonna say stand out about this track, but is noticeable on this track and follows through to the rest of the album is that our good buddy Carlos is finally getting some time. He's still in the background, but he's constant in basically every song, just filling out the back end with chords. He's not doing anything super fancy, but he's giving it a lot bigger sound by just kind of always being there in the background.
With the
Um,
sneaky synths.
yeah, they're sneaky in this song. They're a little less sneaky in some of the other songs, but yeah, he's doing a good job filling out the sound.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, and I found actually in an old interview, this was from metalupdate.com, and they were interviewing Bjorn Speedstrid and talking about this a little bit. He said, the interviewer said, I noticed that in Soilwork, the keyboards don't generally jump right out at you like in some bands. What role do the keyboards usually play in the band? And Bjorn explains, we like to use the keyboards to make the sound more atmospheric and powerful, not in the same way as in Children of Bodom, like leads and stuff. We have them in the background. And then the interviewer says, not quite as flashy. And Bjorn, no, exactly.
the only last note that I have here is that I think on the mix side of things, they're still falling into one trap that they've had kind of throughout all 3 of their first albums is that the lead guitars kind of get buried behind the rhythm guitars. Their rhythm guitars are really loud and forward, which is great because they're really good at writing rhythm guitars, but it's almost too hot in the mix.
Hmm. I didn't
Yeah.
notice that, but I'm not a guitar genius like you.
Well, I mean, I had a lot of the same kind of thoughts as you, brother Dave. I mean, my note is, right out the gate with this spew of words. I mean, he's just the lack of meter. It's as if he was like, okay, it's the first track on the new album. I gotta say as much as I can. Just blast it all out there. This one is very chaotic. It's a bold choice. I think it's the wrong choice. I I don't love this song. And as an opener, I'm like, ugh. So, um, you know, there it is. Moving on to track number 2, Like the Average Stalker. Brother Dave, what do you got for us?
I mean, this song slaps. It's got a great opening riff. Um, I mean, the riffs on this album are, it's hard to find bad ones. Whereas we got sort of some muddy, chuggy stuff on the previous albums. I mean, everything on here is mixed really well for the most part, and a lot of memorable, uh, just verse and chorus kind of not super in your face, but like the underlying bones of the songs are all real good. And this song is the first time we hear Bjorn Speedstrid's clean vocals, which for their first attempt, like he's nailing it. Like they're very good. Uh, and it's all the more impressive because I feel like most other bands would like bring in a new person to do the clean vocals, but this is just Mr. Speed doing his thing, taking yeah, just busting out an entirely new style and he does it well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and really at the time coming out of nowhere because like nothing on the prior two albums would reveal that he even could do something like this. So I wonder if everyone was really surprised at this change in direction that the vocals took. I guess this was probably the first album that I heard of theirs, so that's just what I knew to begin with. But I'm happy that he did this.
Yeah, it's turned out to be a real good move because now his clean vocals are really the defining part of the band, I think, or one of the defining parts of the band,
Mm-hmm.
and have just continued to get better and better. Uh, Solo's great. I love how he says Stalker instead of Stalker.
You pointed that out to me when we were first texting about Soilwork a couple months ago, and I was like, "Oh my God, I'd never really noticed that." But now I just laugh every time I hear this song because
it does make me laugh. Um,
Just like Damon in Vain.
yep.
yeah. Just the little kind of mispronunciations or just the way it comes through just gives me a good chuckle.
It's good
Uh,
to have fun. It's good to laugh.
oh,
Yeah.
I just likes to laugh.
Do we want to talk about the lyrical content of this
Well,
song?
I just want to glom onto some of the stuff you were saying and agree with you that I really love the intro on this one. It's got the cool fast drum fills, and then it just kind of stops with that snare hit and then comes back hard with this really cool riffy groove.
Hmm.
And yeah, just throughout such cool guitar riffs and just fun pummeling drums. I mean, honestly, this song fucks. I love it. It's a good one. It's a little slower tempo than a lot of what was on Chain Heart Machine, but still a good fast pace. It's not frenetic, but like they keep up the intensity. And I really like the driving double kick drum during the chorus where he's like, in my silence where no one else can hear. And it's just like the drums in the background are just pummeling. I don't know. It
Oh
just
yeah, they're
works
just
really
kind of
well.
going nuts, which is
And
another
oh,
classic Soilwork move.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that
Especially
even in the quiet parts, the drums just go ape shit.
yeah, and I feel like we'll get to the later stuff with was it Dirk Verburen takes Henry Ronta's place as the drummer, but Henry Ronta is just all over the place. I really like his drumming a lot. These are some of my favorite albums of any bands, but the this and the next two that he's on are probably my three favorite Soilwork albums. Hard to say. We'll get there. But yeah, and in the end, this one fades out. That's another thing I've noticed a lot more, Dave, since you
They
commented on how they'll just fade stuff out.
I wonder if
Like
it was
it's
like an
kind of
early two,
common.
if it was an early 2000s production style, because
there's
they
at
do that on a
least
couple on Vapor Transmission for Orgy.
Yeah.
there's at least three of them on this album that fade out, and I wrote it in my notes on each of them. I think on this
Yep.
song, it actually fits thematically because this song's about a stalker like being out there in the night, and the song doesn't get resolved, so the stalker's still out there, so you just kind of fade out, but you never know, maybe it'll fade back in one day.
Yeah, you never know. They could
Yeah,
still be riffing on that groove to this day in
it's
studio
it's
Fredman,
very
and
possible.
he just turned it down until he can't hear
Yep.
it anymore. It's like, all right, I gotta go do something for Opeth. I'll be in the next room if you need me. Uh,
Yeah. No, I've written that like this is just a very vocal heavy song. And I think that's kind of the theme of this album is he's doing lots of there's multiple vocal parts and like he'll say a line and then he will like have it repeated, you know, like a half measure later kind of behind himself. So
Mhm.
he's doing a lot. This album is just like his sort of his debut as vocalist almost is like, hey, look, I'm also doing clean singing. Like, look at all the production stuff we can do with my vocals now. Like
Hmm.
this
And
is front and center.
speaking of the vocal, he's still obviously doing the screams, but the screams are so much better
Yeah.
on this album.
Yeah.
Yeah, refined.
Yeah, understandable too. He's you could actually understand what the lyrics are if you're listening along. Sometimes, obviously, he's
Yeah.
still gonna word salad. He's Bjorn Speedstrid.
Any last thoughts on this song?
Love it.
I mean, I love this song too, but I did want to just touch on the lyrical content because I think that our friends over at songmeanings.com had some very insightful things to say. Uh, our our good friend Drunken Monkey 23 years ago. So this would have been right after the album came out.
It dropped and he was on there the next day. He was like,
Yeah.
I have to talk about this one.
Yeah, I've got some important things to say, and here they are, internet. Zero upvotes on this, but I give him an upvote in my mind. This song is so great. I love it. Whenever I used to read novels of like mysterious men of darkness in the late night walking through the streets and city lights, this song brings back visions of that. The guy in a trench coat with one of those old hats that grandfathers still wear. It puts the feeling of loneliness and being lost back into you. The instrumentals kick ass.
I feel like we can all relate.
Every
Yeah.
every song meanings, it's every song meanings comment is a straight up just cry for help or it's just a confession. And oh my God, this one is gold.
Oh, I mean, it really does make you think about those old hats that grandfathers wear. That's undeniable.
Can expect a little something under the Christmas tree this year for each of you boys. If I can figure out what kind of hats he's talking about.
Well, in addition
Seeing
to
one of those.
making some socials, we got to get some merch and we can do grandpa hats.
Oh, yes.
Just top
Hats
hats
of
with
the
the
damned.
Soilwork logo on it.
Yeah. Um, okay, God, that was good. But moving on to track three, Needle Feast. And for me, I want to say that this feels like the first fully realized Soilwork song. I feel like this could be on Natural Born Chaos or Figure Number Five. It all the elements have finally come together, and I'm like, oh, this is who they become, and it's all here on this song. I mean, there's a ton of vocal stuff happening, and the bridge at 218 into the solo is just it's fucking killer. And yes,
Yeah.
they get our good old friend Matthias Eklund on this track, and they say, "Look, here's a Sibian. Just throw your guitar on there and wank around with it." Boy, it doesn't quite fit, but it's on there and it doesn't detract like on the last album. And just Speed is just he's singing his heart out on this one. It's a wonderful song. And I'm like, they finally arrived, I feel.
Yeah. My notes, I had a comment that it's sort of an evolution of the fast-paced stuff on the prior albums, but with more inventive grooves. Like they're just kind of taking it up a notch and doing the stuff they were doing, but to a better and more proficient level. And yeah, that the breakdown at about 215 into the guitar solo, you referenced that. That's just really good. Such layers of sound that all work so well together. It's a bop.
100% it's a bop. Uh, I want to call out the tapping over the main riff. Like it's just kind of going on all the time. So they've got just multiple guitar parts all layered. You mentioned the layering, but tapping is awesome also. And also, I don't think we should pass on this song before calling out how he says needle feist. And I just love the needle faced
He's
so
singing his
much.
heart out.
He's singing his heart out. And yeah, this song is incredible. There's basically nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, what else can you
Agreed.
say? So, let's move on to track number 4, Neurotica Rampage. And I'm gonna kick us off again just because it's got that the drums, the rat tat 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 on the quarter note, which he's
Dave
also
hates that.
added it. He's added it to the cymbal now. So he's doing it on the snare, and then midway through, he'll be doing it on the cymbal as well. And I'm like, oh, come on, guy. So, uh, but I like how they hold back on this one and going into the chorus. Like they do a verse, pre-chorus, then they go to a new verse, and then the pre-chorus, and then the chorus. So they kind of hold back, and I like that. Um, and one of the lyrics here, he references a future song, "Light the Torch." So that's a little fun. He's
They're building the Soilwork cinematic universe.
It really is. I think there's another, God, I don't have it written down, but I think there's another lyric on here that he says, I think he says Mask of Sanity. But is that a Bodum
That's a
song?
Bodum song.
Okay, so boy, it's all
I could not
connected.
remember that.
Yeah,
So it's
I noticed
the
that too,
Mellow
and I was
Death
like, is
cinematic
that?
universe.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, overall, this song grooves. I think it's good. Brother John, what are your thoughts?
Yeah. Uh, I like it. I knew that you guys would not be a big fan of that sort of punk drumming style, because you rag on it all the time. But I thought it was
It's
a
really
decent,
common
solid
in metal,
song.
though.
It's got some of those sneaky synths layered into the background to provide some more of a dark mood, sort of. Overall,
Hmm.
it's just a solid, solid one.
Yeah. Yeah. With that dark mood, you could probably wear a grandpa hat and fit right in.
Exactly.
No, this song is great. It's groovy. It's a little slower. Um, one thing that I liked in the pre-chorus is they throw in a random beat. So they're like grooving in 4/4, and then they throw in like this extra beat that makes it feel elongated in the middle of one of them. And it just grooves harder somehow. Uh, and so I think while they are doing less weird timing stuff as these albums go on, when they do it, they do it with more proficiency so that it really sits well in the song. By the end of this song, though, I'm kind of ready for it to be done.
It drags about 30 seconds too long. Um, I had the exact same thought.
But I mean, it's still overall still slaps. This is a great song.
Yeah, I think oh, it's not the longest on the album. But so real quick, you say that the punk beat, the rat-tat-tat is common in metal. If that's the case, how come I've never heard a doom band do that beat, Brother Dave?
The
Because I
exception
mean
proves the rule.
Check your
they
privilege,
might be
sir.
doing it, but it's just so slow that it's not monotonous.
Uh, you're still
When
waiting
you're
for that
only
second tat to fall.
yep, when they're only hitting the snare twice a minute, doesn't get so repetitive, does it?
Oh, so we are halfway through the album. We are at the track The Analyst. And Brother John, why don't you kick us off?
Well, I do like this one quite a bit. It's got some cool guitar picking stuff like into the chorus. I don't know if that's the chorus where he's like, I think you just made a big mistake.
Hmm.
And that part is pretty cool. And the whole chorus is, it slaps. And they do that a couple of times. Brother Dave, what are your thoughts on this one?
The the verse I think is a little bit boring, but like you said, the chorus just absolutely slaps, both vocally and musically. I think it all comes together and is really good. Um, and they do some nice stuff just shifting between regular time and halftime in here to give it the feel of speeding up and slowing down while they're not actually really changing anything. It's a pretty straightforwardly written song, but they just do it's a good composition on the drums, which is a little sad then because the drums I feel like are kind of quiet here. I think they still have yet to nail the mix. But overall, still good song. Very
Hmm.
chorus heavy, but in a good
I
way.
didn't I didn't notice that about the drums, but maybe you're right. But I overlooked it all because I have such high nostalgia points on this album that it kind of overrides any thing that otherwise might detract from it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the chorus just shines here, and I'm a big fan of. So I think you alluded to this, brother Dave. It seems to kind of speed up. So it goes, I think you just made a big mistake. This is just a fake cause. I am, and then it seems to get faster, and he goes into
Mhm.
guilty by association, sinner of mankind. And I noticed that, and I was like, "Oh, this is interesting, and this is really fun."
Yeah, and it's
So
just that the drums are going twice as fast, but the overall music is still at the same BPM that it was.
yeah, yeah, but it tricks you, and it makes you notice, and you're like, okay, something happened here, and I'm loving it. So just that simple kind of musical trick, really is good. Yeah, overall, I think uh I wrote sneaky synths on this one. So I'm sure there's some synths kind of sneaking around doing something.
They
Carlos
are
really
sneaking
does.
all through
He
here.
he does a lot more
He's
on
on
this
like every
album.
song.
Yeah,
Like on the previous albums, it was like, why did they have a synth player?
there
But
was
now he's here all the time, and
yeah.
he's making bacon.
He advocated on his own behalf, and eventually they cowed to his demands. And they're like, "Fine, just put it in.
Yeah.
Just wait until the vocals
But
are
put it
done,
in the
so you don't
background.
mess with the vocals.
Yeah.
Make sure it meshes well with everything else we're doing." He's like, "Okay,
Don't do anything fancy like Children of Bodom.
yeah,
Now,
exactly."
now, Brother John, I think that you are going to open up our segment, Lyrical Tactics, Vocal Gymnastics.
Lyrical tactic, vocal gymnastics.
Right, you are, Brother Paul. And this one, I think I'll start by mentioning another segment of that interview that I talked about before, where the interviewer asks Bjorn Speedstrid point blank, "What inspires you to write the songs for Soilwork in a lyrical sense?" And the answer was psychology. That is where the inspiration comes from. More or less psychotic or neurotic people, sick matters and stuff, tales of different types of individuals. So I don't know how much that necessarily shines through here on the analyst. I mean, it's open to many different interpretations, but I think this might actually be so. This is obviously my own personal interpretation of this, but I think this might be sort of a thickly veiled diss track about how Bjorn Speedstrid may have been involved in some litigation, possibly a vehicle accident of some kind, and he felt he should have won and shouldn't have been found at fault. But some smarmy analyst showed up to court and testified against him, basically sold him down the river, and he lost the case based on this guy's fucking bullshit testimony. He's like, "I think you just made a big mistake. This conversation's over. The analyst may have won this case of discrimination and nothing but lies. This fallen era makes me wonder, is it worth it when your dignity dies?" He's like, "This guy's a fucking poser and a chode, and he's screwing up my life by coming into court talking some bullshit. And I thought I had a good case, but he shot it full of holes and they ruled against me." That's my hot take.
Would you like to plug your law firm at this time?
I better not. If anybody needs a bankruptcy, look me up. I can help you with that.
No, I think yeah, like generally this album is less lyrically opaque than the previous ones, where he was very much just kind of saying words, I think, that sounded good next to each other. Whereas a lot of these songs, yeah, they do come from, talking about kind of darker psychological aspects of the world. I don't know if it's necessarily about litigation in this one.
Well, he rear-ended somebody listening to Korn, and they took him straight to court. But he's like, this guy stopped in front of me.
I
But
need you to put
the
this
traffic
analysis
analyst.
on songmeanings,
Oh,
dot
I
com.
probably should. Probably should start an account. The traffic analyst totally fucked him. He's like, you were going too fast for conditions. It's like, no, I wasn't. That guy stopped. He slammed on the brakes in front of me.
I mean, there I could definitely see something being to your explanation here. I wonder if it is more related to um like being committed against your will to like an insane asylum or for a crime more generally, just to fit with the theme of the album, which is kind of psychosis.
Well,
I
yeah, that's true.
I think that's
Or
probably
just,
more likely.
yeah, or just, well, the beginning starts out straightforward on the path of life. Who makes you choose that way? Is it a crime to give it all up, to leave it all behind? It's like just finding one's way through life and dealing with adversity and things like that. It can be
Yeah,
confusing out there.
still a little bit vague. And he does a thing here. He also did it in the previous song where he references a you, but it's not really clear who you is.
Hmm.
Which is I feel like that's a pretty common trope in lyrics writing if you want to seem deep or
Yeah.
let people read into it what they want, they get to put a face on that you.
Yeah. You can't be too on the nose with stuff. Otherwise, how are people
It-
going to interpret it to their own whims?
yeah.
Makes
Or
it
it can
more
come off as
personal,
cheesy.
potentially. Yeah. Well, true.
All right.
But yeah, I'm for your explanation here.
Yeah.
I had no idea what was going on in this song.
Something
Neither
I
do I, as is maybe obvious, but I am guessing.
this is something I am learning about you, brother Dave, is just sort of how you read lyrics, and you mentioned poetry and how it has to be pretty overt um for you to glean any kind of understanding. So makes sense why you are not an analyst, but the scientist of the group. So,
Yeah.
all
I
right.
gotta play to my strengths.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to track number 6, Grand Failure Anthem. And brother Dave, take us away.
Um, this I think is the point in the album that I think they're losing a bit of steam. Uh, there's some good parts in this song, like the failed part in the chorus, along with some galloping chugs, is a lot of fun. Uh, the verses I recall being kind of a word salad. Um, and overall, there's not a whole lot that hooks me on this song, unfortunately, other than the vaguely anti-capitalist message of being chewed up and spit out by society.
I'm gonna jump in and say that you stole everything that I was going to say about this. Musically, the song does nothing for me. I do love him shouting, failed, 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 failed. The clean vocals are fine, but it's an unmemorable, kind of uninspired,
Mm-hmm.
album track.
Ah, ah, ah. Hard
Prove us
disagree with
wrong.
both of you. Yeah,
This
guys.
is why I jumped in right after Dave, because I
Uh,
just knew.
John's
God,
like, I
I
gotta
like this
love
one a
this.
lot. Oh man, it's got that powerful vocal line in the chorus where it's like, "And the one you hate will suddenly be yourself, and it's all too late." And then they do that cool guitar picking solo after that, like each time they go through that part.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's a
that
cool line.
is good stuff. that slaps the sweet spot. This is not a snoozer, in my opinion. And I had in my notes, it has what Dave might consider more tasteful, in quotes, kick snare drumming, because it's used in moderation. Because, they do have that in quite a few of these songs, but he's not like overdoing it in this one. He's mixing it up quite a bit. Then I got to call out our segment, Bring the Mosh, where we talk about all those breakdowns to bring the beat downs. Are you ready? At the 3:37 mark, they break it down and they have some noodly guitar over the top of the low end chugs. That's a pretty cool breakdown. And then they carry that forward into a pretty rad guitar solo-y bit too. So I thought they're doing a lot of interesting stuff here. Plus that cool chorus that sticks in your head. Grand Failure Anthem is not a failure, in my opinion.
You've convinced me to upgrade it.
Just give it another listen. I think you can maybe appreciate some of these things they're doing that you might have just whooshed right over your head in the first listen.
Yeah, well, and the thing is, like, I've listened to this 10 plus times in the past week.
Well, you missed it. Listen again.
I know, I missed it. The thing with even the bad songs on this album are not bad by any means.
Yeah.
This whole album is really solid.
There are no bad songs on it, is the
yeah.
thing.
Well, you don't think that there's a bad Soilwork song, period, I'm pretty sure.
Well,
yeah,
that's mostly true. There's some that are less good. There's some that are less good. When we start talking about other bands that I'm not as into, maybe I'll have some lower overall rankings, but I don't think you're going to find any flops in my book here with Soilwork. We'll see. We'll see. We got several albums left to go for this season.
All right. Well, let's move on to track number 7, Structure Divine. And I have sneaky / like rising synths. So those are all over the place. And this is, again, a lot of kind of vocal production stuff at the 350 mark. He's been doing this throughout the album, but he does like this kind of guttural building. He's like the in the background as he's singing. So he's just got all these different vocal tracks that are happening, and it just makes it really, really rich. This is a good song. I got no complaints about this one.
Yeah, I agree with all that.
I was just a little not blown away by it. It's like, it's nice, but this song is one of the least standout songs on the album, I think.
Yeah, it's serviceable. It's a decent,
it exists
yeah,
as song 7.
And I noticed something that kind of made me chuckle, like a little lyrical thing, but at the 1 minute 13-second mark, there's a line that goes, beware the millions of senses locked in this rusty cage of fanatic rage. And he really rolls the R on rusty. And it just kind of makes me laugh every time I hear it. Locked in this rusty cage of fanatic rage. But also, there's a lengthy and cool guitar interlude starting at about 2 minutes and 43 seconds that I thought was pretty awesome. So, definitely serviceable, if not more than serviceable.
Okay. Well, moving on to track number 8, Shadow Child. Brother John, talk to us about the Shadow Child.
All right. Well, I don't really know who the Shadow Child is, but I do know that this song was there's a demo version released with a Japanese version of Chain Heart Machine, and they re-recorded it and included it here. And also, if it may be hard to find that Japanese version, but they released that demo version on the early Chapters EP which is on Spotify if you want to listen to it. Not nearly as good as this recording of it, but this, I guess, would have then been Speed's first actual use of clean vocals, because this was recorded like a year or so before A Predator's Portrait. And then they redid the song, for this album. So just a little fun tidbit about this one. But the chorus, where he's like, lead us, shadow child, soiled by your faith in disguise, that kind of sticks in my head. And there's another one where it fades out at the end, so I'll get a little chuckle out of that. But yeah, the verses also kind of similar to the prior songwriting style, where the lyrics don't really flow with the melody, just sort of that cramming it in however it'll fit sort of situation. And maybe because it a little fitting with the Chain Heart Machine songs, because it was made around that same time. But overall, I think this is a pretty solid one. 10 out of 10. Love it.
So
I'm gonna stop my negativity and say I also really like this song. And the fade out, it's endearing. I feel like there's a good use of like a recurring motif in the guitar work. They have like this riff that they use in the pre-chorus, and it also leads into the solo, and it kind of shows up in various forms throughout this song, which isn't something they typically do, like reusing riffs like that. And so I thought that was a nice move on their part, in addition to just having good verses and good chorus and all that.
yeah, so they do this at kind of the 3:15 to 3:30 mark when they're coming out of the solo. They do this faux like wind down, um, and it's really fucking great. It's such a cool, like that hook has been in my head kind of all day. I had written, of course, Brother Dave must love the fade out. So there it is. Um, and then so this album came out in 2001, and he has a lyric about the pre-millennium, which I think, all three of us going to
Lived
certain
through the end times.
going to a certain church which had a huge focus on end time theology. The premillennium is one of those kind of Christian terms that we're all very familiar with, so that stuck out to me. Sadly, I think he was probably talking about the actual millennium and not the tribulation.
Oh, you mean the Willennium?
Get fucked. Okay, moving on. We are at track 9, Final Fatal Force. And I have written synths. It's an 80s banger. Man, they got like a lot of pinch harmonics on this song also, which have they been doing that for the rest of this album? Like they've not been so prevalent as in past ones.
Yeah, I don't remember them sticking out as much here.
A here and there maybe, but like, yeah, like this is just a fucking groovy song. I don't like the chorus, but all the verses slap. He's got he's got a lot of fun lyrics in here that just kind of that rhyme and at one point he says tip tap toe. Which,
I thought there was a lot of funny lyrical stuff going on here. Not necessarily good, but
no,
funny.
but it's fun. I think this one is it's fun, it's upbeat, it's just them just grooving about. It's a kind of 80s throwback. God, I love this one is good. And I just don't like the chorus. I don't hate it, but I don't like it. I don't think it particularly fits with the feel of the song.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with you on that. I don't think I like this song as much as you do. One thing that Soilwork does a lot on this album is kind of have two-part choruses, where they'll have a screamed section of the chorus and then they'll have a clean section. And so this one's got the "Am I to be released" part. At least I hunger for more. And then they go into the final fatal, fatal force part. And yeah, it's not a great chorus. Um, did I write? Oh, I did want to call out Bjorn Speed's Strid use of his possibly his favorite modifier of diabolical. He loves calling things diabolic or diabolical. It shows up all over the place.
Oh,
I
nice. I'll have
don't
to be
know
on
if
the
that
look
continues
out for
going
that.
forward, but yeah, it's probably showed up 4 or 5 times just as a funny descriptor
Nice.
that he likes using. But overall, I'm not huge on this song. It kind of exists.
Hmm. Yeah, for me, I didn't have a lot of major comments about this. Seems pretty solid to me. I feel like although I play the drums, I'm not good at identifying different time signatures, but this one starts out with like a 7/8 alternating with a 8/8 time signature. I believe it is. Dave, correct me if I'm
I didn't
wrong.
even catch that. I'm gonna have to go listen for it again. So if it
Yeah,
is,
so
he's doing it well enough that it just grooves.
yeah, it's just like at the very beginning part, as I'm, trying to play the air drums in the car along to it, I'm like, okay, he's only doing like 7/8 and then 8/8. So like 15/8, 15/16. I don't know what it would be. It's math, I guess. But that was kind of fun. And it has some pretty good guitar solo stuff after the 3 minute mark, which stood out to me. But now offhand, I don't recall what it sounded like. But it was enough of a bop for me to never fast forward it. That's all I got to say about this one.
Perfect. Which leads us to the final track on just the standard album, track 10, the title track, A Predator's Portrait, where apparently Mr. Michael Ockerfeldt of Opeth sings on this.
I mean, they had him right in the studio. Why not get him to come over and belt out a couple bars?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Brother Dave, thoughts on this track?
Thoughts on this track? I didn't have a whole lot of thoughts on this track. I feel like the end of this album kind of exists. They do some nice stuff with 3 plus 5 in their timing again. So it still evens out to 8. You can still get that kind of 4/4 groove going, but it's just a little more interesting riff wise. Um, but yeah, the song, it's fine. It's I feel like this album is very front loaded with some just absolute bangers. And then the last half is it's not bad, but I listened for the first half of this album.
Yeah. I
Yeah, I guess
mean,
I probably agree with you, but I mean, I'd still listen for the whole thing. But the first few tracks are definitely like some of the best Soilwork songs, in my opinion. This one, still pretty good. And they had some cool guitar solos that, from like the 3 minute 4 mark on, then they get some really cool harmonies around 3 minutes, 20 seconds. So I really like that guitar part. And I think the Michael Ackerfeld, I think he's singing on the chorus where it's like, "Cause he will remain the same." I'm pretty sure that's his vocals.
I feel like it's underutilized. Like it doesn't enhance the song having him on there. It just sounds like their standard kind of clean singing, backing kind of gang vocals they do. Yeah, I think this one's a dud of a closer. My one thought was, why haven't we ever gotten like a Speed Strid kind of rap side project from him? Because he's just now sing along with the Predator's Portrait. Come on, guy, like give us a solo rap offering. Like, do it.
Yeah, with the
Are
number
you
of
sure that he
syllables he can
hasn't?
say per syllable, he could absolutely do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, with the number of things he's been on that, I mean, I haven't heard nearly all of his stuff. Maybe he has, and we just haven't discovered it yet.
yeah. Well, we'll have to have him on the podcast and really grill him about that. Hold his feet to the fire because the world's crying out for it. We're all
Yeah.
wandering in the desert, just waiting for
Walking the
to drop
Aardvark
his.
Trail,
We are on
waiting.
the Yardbark Trail, searching for his rap offer. Um, and then we'll do the bonus track, Asylum Dance, which is a B-side bonus track for the Japanese and Korean versions of this, and was on the re-release. Uh, Brother John, what are your thoughts on Asylum Dance?
Well, I had never even heard this one till recently, but I was glad that it was on the Spotify. I don't know. I guess they have the reissue from 2003 on there, and I thought it was pretty cool. It enhanced the album, whereas sometimes they tag something on the end where it's like, okay, there's just kind of a dud, or they could have left it off. Like, I think we're mentioning that about live versions of stuff on a prior episode, but it's I thought it was pretty cool and had some cool solo interludes at about 1 minute 55 seconds, starting at that part that I thought were pretty cool. And again, it fades out at the end, which made me laugh.
Yep.
And it maybe made me laugh a little more than usual because it almost fades out right in the middle of a verse where there's still singing taking place. So it struck me as being even a little more funny than just fading out the instruments. It's like they didn't really know how to end the song. They just turned it down, turned it down, turned it down until you just couldn't hear it at all. But
Frederick
overall,
Nordstrom's
thought it was
like,
a
Opeth is
thought it was a
playing
fun
now.
addition.
I need to turn you guys down.
Yep. So I got better things to do.
Sorry, I double booked.
Yeah. It's
completely
a classic
inadvertent.
sitcom where he's on two dates.
Michael Lagerfeld wasn't actually even supposed to sing on A Predator's Portrait.
No.
He's just like
Just
got it
ended up in the
confused.
wrong studio room.
Yeah. I don't remember writing these lyrics. Oh well, whatever.
Brother Dave, do you have thoughts about Asylum Dance?
I understand why they didn't include it on the album. I feel like tonally it's a little bit different. It's less dark, it's a little more upbeat and a little more melodic than the rest of the album is. But it's a good song, actually. I like as a standalone song, I think it's more solid than like Final Fatal Force or A Predator's Portrait. Um, but and it's super groovy. It does have the fade out. That's fun. But I get why they left it off.
Yeah, I mean, I have that written down. Like, I see why this was a B-side or a bonus track. It to me kind of sounds like a first pass at a song. Like they've hammered out some of the details. It doesn't seem fully finished or realized, in part because yeah, they do fade out in the middle of a verse. But just beyond that, it just something's missing, makes it feel a little incomplete. It's fine, but I wouldn't have been mad to not listen to this. So with that, it is time to head over to our resident ranking experts, Brother John.
Well, thank you, Brother Paul. So this is our final segment, Bop or Flop, where we decide, does the album slap or is it crap? We have honed a patented 6-tier ranking system going from 6 all the way down to 1. First, we've got the bops. A perfect 6 is essentially an unassailable album. This is metal incarnate. 5 is a banger, an album we could easily listen to on repeat. And a 4, that's doable. It's a very solid album, worth listening to. Or could it be a flop? A 3, it lacks zazz. Nothing special, somewhat forgettable. A 2 is called that because it's a number 2. It's crap, and you definitely shouldn't spend money on it. And a 1 belongs in a garbage can and shouldn't be listened to unless you are an auditory masochist. So let me just kick this off and say, for me, I did waffle a little bit on this. it was either going to be a very high five or a six. And, the nostalgia factor weighed heavily. And so for me, this is a six. This is honestly one of my all time favorite albums. Awesome from start to finish. You guys pointed out some flaws. I don't see those flaws. I love this album. Not really the final evolution of Soilwork's sound, but it's a giant leap for Metalkind and brings Soilwork in the direction that we all know and love, where they bring the clean and the harsh vocals that are so beloved. And like I said, it's got a major nostalgia factor for me. I've listened to this one a lot over the last almost like 24 years, I guess, since it's been out. The production quality, really good. I thought the mix sounds great. Drums are on point, guitars are searing, got those sneaky synths in the background. The vocals are evolved. They got the cleans and the screams. It's basically the full package. And it all works so well to make a really unforgettable album. So for me, it's a six.
That is our first six of the show. All right, Brother Dave.
Definitely not our last from Brother John.
No, he.
Or no, there's more coming.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
all
mark
sixes
my
for
words.
him from here on out.
Yep. I'm gonna build some suspense still by not ranking this in a six. If this album was just the first half of this album, it would probably be a six, or a high five. This album to me is very front loaded. Bastard Chain's awesome. Like the average Style Cut is awesome. Needle Faced is awesome. Neurotica Rampage is awesome. And then it's kind of a bunch of songs happen after that are fine, but it's hard to write an entire album of bangers. So they've done real well here. There's also so I'm torn between giving this four, saying it slaps, and a low five, that it's a banger. And I think I'm gonna end up going with it slaps because I'm a negative person. And this band still has so much higher that I know they're gonna go. But this album is absolutely worth listening to on its own merits, not as part of some exercise in digging into Soilwork's discography.
I think that's absolutely fair. And if I'm not mistaken, Brother John has changed the patented six-tier system so
That's
that
true.
the four ranking no longer slaps, but it's doable.
That's doable.
So,
That is doable. I'd
But,
like to stand on that.
but I,
maybe five should be like to stand on that thing.
our
I think
patented
we-
six-tier system changes every single week.
It's ever evolving. So,
I love it.
Or maybe that should be the six. I like to stand on that thing.
Yeah, no, I think
I think that's
but
yeah.
before I give my ranking, I think that Brother John, every time he gives a six now, it needs to be like in a different language. Yeah, just because there's gonna be so many of them. He can't just be saying six itself every week. He has to say it in German and Spanish and
Well,
and
we'll
all of
figure
that.
out some way to differentiate the
Gotta zazz
sixes.
it up. Otherwise, it's gonna okay, another six. Great. That means nothing. For me, this album, I kind of referenced it before. It kind of feels like the first truly Soilwork album. Steel Bath was them sort of discovering how to be a band and work together and write songs. Chainheart was a very guitar heavy noodle fest of an album. And Predator's Portrait, I think, is kind of their first it's his debut as a clean singer. It's a very vocal heavy album, especially with all the vocal production stuff they do. So it feels like kind of the first true Soilwork album, and I'm gonna say that this is a four. It is doable. There's a lot of good stuff here, but now all the pieces have finally come together, and I'm excited to see what comes next for them. So yeah, I'm sticking right there. It was never even in my mind to give this a five. This was always a solid four for me. Any last thoughts on this one?
I love it.
If you're new to the band, it's worth listening to.
a great entry point. It's pretty much what my entry point to Soilwork was. And, if you can vibe with this, then continue to listen to what they come out with after, and you'll continue to be impressed.
Well, Soil Mates, that's all for this episode. Stay tuned for the next episode where we will discuss Soilwork's transformative album, Natural Born Chaos. Until then, stay metal, my brothers.
Hell yeah, brother.